just showed you? Watch how she took it. She tried many different things until she got the right exact situation.
See how the color shifted?
And so why it's so important to have indigenous African photographers are the ones that are telling the stories and showing the life here. I think that's important in any part of the world, in any culture. It's always better when you have stories coming from people that know the stories the best. Wait a minute. Somebody just came in.
Hello, I'm sorry for disturbing you.
So did you park your spaceship outside?
Yes, I did.
Hi.
Okay, I'm
Are you talking?
Sangha. Yes,
Nice to
I'm
meet
sorry I'm late. I was told like
You
an hour ago.
actually arrived just at the exact right moment. Because
Okay.
we're just starting the panel now.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
So you talk us with ActionAid Kenya, right?
Yes.
Communication specialist. So she'll be able to talk about anything you want to talk about in relation to the photographs. We'll do a chat about that. So just do it.
That's fine.
So what we'll do is I've already said all I need to say. I'm pretty much done. I'll act as the moderator. Rose was gonna do that job, but I guess I can just keep doing that. And Rachel Mbaka from Amwick is supposed to be here. You guys know what Amwick stands for? It's the Association of Media Women in Kenya. So it's an organization that's just for women journalists. So for all you girls that are in the journalism club, maybe one day you might be a member of Amwick. Rose is a member of Amwick. And that's how I met Rose. I went to give a speech to Amwick one last year, and that's where I met her. She was in the audience. So Amwick is a great organization, very influential and interesting. So hopefully Rachel will come back. She's attending another conference at the same time as this one, so she's going back and forth. So hopefully she'll come back in time to join us for a bit. So let's start. Everybody can speak for 5 or 10 minutes as long as you want, but we're supposed to stop at 4, but we can go a little bit longer if it's okay. We started a little bit late. So we'll start with Heki. And normally the way these things work, I think, is that everybody speaks, and you guys can write down any questions you have, and then we can have a question and answer period. But if you have a question that comes to your mind right away, just feel free to raise your hand and ask it, okay? Don't be shy. There's no such thing as there's such thing as a bad question, but in this case, we're not going to have any bad questions, okay? Ask whatever you want, okay? So Heki, please go ahead.
Thank you, David. Just a piece of advice for you.
Yes.
You never tell a teacher, a preacher, and a politician that you can speak as long as you want.
I'll remember that.
Remember that.
Yeah, okay.
So good afternoon. Any person from Shofco, please put up your hand. Good, thank you. Can we appreciate that? Thank you so much. So, as David has said, my name is Heki Odera. Currently, I serve as Director of Education for Shining Hope for Communities, but we call it Shofco because the name is too long. Shofco is when I say a community-based organization, currently most people refer to it as an NGO that is locally based, headquartered in Kibera, operating in around 42 different sites, but mostly we focus in slums. And within the slums, we have different programs that we use to impact positively the lives of the community members in areas where we operate. So a part of the programs that we have is free clinics or healthcare for community members. We have economic empowerment programs like SACCO, and also youth empowerment programs. We have WASH, and I think we are the first organization that has done aerial water piping. Water pipes zinapitia juu instead of down, because to avoid contamination of water. Then we also have education program, which I'm going to briefly share about. Under education program, we had ECD program, we had adult literacy program, and we also run free high-quality education girls' schools. Currently, we have 2 girls' schools, Kibera School for Girls, represented here, based in Kibera, and also Madare School for Girls, which is based in Madare. Kibera School for Girls was started in which year? Yes? 2009, by a gentleman who was born and raised in Kibera, and he used to be a street boy called Kennedy Odede. He is our CEO and also co-founder. Within our education program, we try to integrate a lot of elements just to help and give the best to our girls in regards to education. because we believe within the slums where we operate, one of the key ways that you can use to change the lives of the slum dwellers, also one of the ways you can use to change the lives of the community members in that area is offering quality education. For example, I believe Nazlin stays in Kibera for now, but give her 6-7 years. Will you be there? Will your family be there? No. So we are using quality education specifically for girl child who may not have that chance to get education, to give them that level of exposure. So when David approached us with this high quality program, we knew that it was going to be a game changer. Maybe as per now we might not see the exact impact of this program. But even with that, I believe the level of impact that has been seen is still quite high. But in the next 10 years, it will be so great. So right now, they might have learned things like communication, because when they're doing their photography, they communicate with each other, they communicate with the community members. Collaboration, working together to come up with such a program is so huge. And I remember David in his presentation, he was saying that he is very jealous about one of the photos that was being shown here. And for a teacher, not just a teacher, let me call, for a professor to be jealous of your work, it means it is top quality. And not just a professor from the US, which university? California?
California State.
California State. That tells you the quality of work. How many times do people tell you they are proud of your work? But you look at the quality of the person telling you they are proud of your work, then you know your work is standard or high standard. So somebody of his caliber, to say that he is so not only proud but extremely jealous about the work that the girls have done, that shows you the quality. And I can say I've been in education field for almost 19 years. Top schools in the country, McKinney, Oshol, Waldorf, and all that. But I have never seen a project of this level. So I want to tell you girls, it has been an extreme privilege. You might not know now, but I'm so sure a seed has been planted. You're going to be curious, and the skills that you've learned through the way, that is really, really, really going to help you going forward with your work. The best education, we say, is that education that prepares you for an unknown future. If the education can equip you with skills that can enable you to survive the challenges that the world is going to throw to you 10 years from now, then we say that education is quality. If somebody told maybe, for example, McDonald Mariga, that you'd be earning millions from football, if somebody, for example, told David that in the next 10, 15 years you'll be flying to Africa because of photography, maybe he would have not believed. And that is the quality of work that we've seen here. It is preparing you for the future. Gone are the days when our parents will push us, oh, Heki, you're so brilliant, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be so-and-so. Right now, the world is so open. With the skills and competencies that you have, it is going to make you earn a living, and we are so sure the impact of this is going to help improve the livelihoods of your communities, because we say Kibera is your current place of stay, but it is not your destination. So part of what is going to move you from there, to move your community from there and improve the livelihoods of your community members, would be the photography classes that you have. And so we really, really, really appreciate, thank you so much, David. We appreciate so much just taking your time to prepare the curriculum, coming down to work with the teachers together. We really appreciate that. And also to Nikon, who have been able to sponsor this program. I wish we had a session where girls could just talk on their own, so that I don't assume I'm best placed to talk on your behalf, because you know the level of quality that has gone into this. But all in all, Shofco really appreciates so much, and we hope this is not going to be the end of photography. Please, girls, when I'm retired, enjoying my life in my village, I would want to receive a call, oh, Heki, I'm Nazlin. I was taught photography. Right now, I'm the chief photographer of the president. Could you come to State House and sing hi? Thank you, thank you.
Thanks so much. Sandra?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I removed this. So when I'm moving around, they always wonder why I'm wearing this, and they're like, this is a very strange looking woman. Okay, I've got problems with eyes, dry eye problems. So sometimes so I realize the windows are closed, so that's why I removed it. If there's a bit of wind or cold into my eyes, they'll really get swollen. So anyway, that's enough about my health issues. So my name is Takaite Bote. You can call me Taka. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm a journalist by training. I'm fascinated to see cameras and girls especially. I'm based in Zimbabwe. I'm just here on a mission for 1.5 months, supporting ActionAid Kenya on communications to document work around, if you are aware that there is a food crisis in Kenya because of current crisis caused by Ukraine war and various other issues. And also there are also issues around the drought itself, if you are aware, that has been happening. So I've been deployed to ActionAid Kenya to support them on documenting case studies, including taking some of the pictures on the impact of drought in East Africa, Kenya included. I'll also be in Somaliland, and I'll also be in Ethiopia to also support them on documenting communities affected by drought and the increases in price. Let me talk about ActionAid. What ActionAid is. ActionAid is a global justice organization working in about 46 countries internationally. So Kenya included, and in Zimbabwe, where I come from, included. We work with, we unapologetically side with women and girls. So 60% or 70% of our work goes towards empowering women and girls. Why are we saying women and girls? Because we know historically women and girls have been lagging behind, whether it's economically, even when you look culturally, you realize that women have been lagging behind. Even if you look at women that are earning, women like myself, I actually face certain barriers even when I go in society to try to break my way through, whether it be economic or for my voices to be heard. So what programs does ActionAid do? We do a whole lot of programs. We're looking at women's access to economic issues. Why are women lagging behind? We want also women to take lead economically. We also want women to take lead in terms of even decision making. If you look at the world around us, you realize that how many female presidents do we have? And then even when you even go to photography itself, over the years, I think, if you think of a photographer, you think of a man like him, right? You wouldn't think of a woman or a person like myself who was trained a journalist. So you think of a man. So I'm happy that there is this program that is empowering girls to actually speak or to be the voices. Because if you're a photographer, you are the voice of the voices, right? And if women are speaking out, or if women are collecting voices in communities, it means they are representing that silent voice that has not been heard. So whose narrative are we seeing in the world, even when we look at the media itself? The narrative is about men. Even I was reading this book about the gender bias. You know, this book was talking about how the man himself has been the default settings of humankind. So even the way cars were made, they were made for men. That's why you hear many accidents, women involved in many accidents, because of its design itself. So I'm happy to see that there are actually women that are going to break that that sort of default settings to also become a voice of the voiceless. So I'm very happy. I become very passionate about issues around women because that's the work that we are doing. We are trying to uplift girls. So the work spans across many issues: right to food, right to education, right to participate in politics also, because we are saying women are also, in my country where I come from, 52% of the population is women, right? But when you look at the leadership positions across sectors, it's all men. So we want to change that narrative. And I like to hear that you are doing participatory photography. So when it comes to Action Aid, when we hear about participatory photography, we think of communities speaking their voices, right? Communities, collective voices, speaking their voices. So you need, as you finish your studies, you need to actually represent your communities. Maybe one day you also join Action Aid and you want to work, because Action Aid, we say we side with the poor, with people living in poverty. So whether you are coming from what angle, but you are siding with people living in poverty. So we are very sensitive about whose voices that we are projecting. So as I was looking at, because I was actually told an hour ago about this program, so pardon me if I'm just going off. If I'm just going off record. But the moment I saw participatory photography, I just thought of I also conduct some participatory photography trainings back in Zimbabwe, and even here, as I'm here, I'm also training staff to do their own, to collect, to build their own voices. So when we are talking about participatory photography, we are talking about whose voices are we projecting, right? So when you go to a community, whose voices are you projecting? And if you are from Action Aid, you are actually looking at the voices of the woman, right? The voices of people living in poverty. So as you are, one day maybe you are going to be hired by Action Aid. We hire a lot of professional photographers to collect content. You just don't shoot from nowhere. You need to know whose voices you are going to project, because we work with partners, we work with communities at community level, we work with various movements that we support. So we actually even train the communities to tell their own story, because if the story is told by the community, it is told in a better way. So you are like our future citizen journalists. When the things are not working well in government, we actually use photography as a tool for evidence building. If there is hunger, for example, right now, you go to a certain village, you need to build up the evidence to tell your government, to say there is hunger. I've been to Makueni and I've been to Kajiado. You know, I saw rivers drying up and I saw what is happening there. So how is photography going to assist? So photography is a very important tool in actually building the evidence, even for advocacy. Right now, there is a lot of campaigning happening in Kenya right now. So you, as a citizen journalist, you can actually say, here is my picture. This is a woman who is facing hunger, and she's having one meal because of hunger. You, government that is coming into power, what are you going to do? So that's how we also use photography. So for us, photography is very important in social change, in actually pushing for issues that affect communities that are in poor. And then when you are talking about evidence building, photography is also important in terms of fundraising. For example, you want to support currently my current mission in Kenya right now is to support Action Aid International to fundraise for support for communities that are affected by drought and the price increases.
Thank you so much, Tata.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear you bring out the aspect of supporting women and the young girls, how these skills are going to help the young girls in the future. I just want to ask you to sit for a minute, and then the girls, if you have a question, you can write it somewhere, and then we'll give it to Taka so that she responds to the exact questions that we have, okay? Are we together?
Thank you, I can go on.
You'll get another chance.
Thank you, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you. So now let's give Taka a clap. How do we do the Kenyan way? 1, 2, 3. Again. Thank you so much, Taka. We move to Kevin. Kevin, the floor is yours. Share your experience.
Thank you, Frida. So, my name is Kevin Ochieng, and before I start, I just want to acknowledge how privileged I am to sit and speak in the presence of Professor Obutu over here, David, and the representative from Eki there from Shofco, Yaka from Akonei. So it's a great privilege speaking in front of you guys. And I would like to start by saying, I will answer this question in a way, when David first came in the first class, he asked the girls, why photojournalism? Why would you like to take pictures of people out there? And there was stunned silence like there is right now. Yeah, so nobody had a clear answer to that. So after the training, after 3 weeks of the training, we had Tony White, right? Yeah, Tony White came and asked the same question: why would you like to take pictures of maybe wildlife, the environment, the street in Kibera? And one girl answered, I think it's Anita. It's Philomena, I think. She answered that her friend is a good footballer. She would like to take pictures of her friend. And this was
So, my name is Edwin Yamasio. I'm a photojournalist professionally, and I'm a student, I'm still a student. And I'm the partnership coordinator at Nikon Kenya. So I'm privileged to be here. One thing you might ask yourself why Nikon was like, why these kids, why these girls? So those are two questions that, and why the 5300? Thanks for that. So we have a similar project, but for young people who have graduated from high school and coming from an informal settlement. The dream of going to university or even a college is, if you get a chance, you're good to go. So, but most of the families, there's no that privilege, because you might go to university, but the situation at home will not keep you in peace while in school. So one thing is, so for that particular project, we did the first round, and we had 2 ladies. One around, let's say 24, and the other one around 29, 30, around there. So the second one, no girls at all, 100% boys. Then the third one, we had to postpone. We postponed it for 3 consecutive, like for almost 6 months, just because you cannot continue a class with only male students. And it's an informal settlement, that is, most of the people who are affected right there are women. So when David came with the idea of, we want to do a project, a photography project for girls in Kibera, it was like, wow, this is not what we needed. And so it gives us an opportunity to teach you to take photos. At first, as for me, for my situation, I was, so after high school, I told you I'm an IT student. The reason I was to do journalism, but journalism, I used to see those guys writing articles and articles and articles, and I was like, no, this is just my shit. So after some time, I'm a beneficiary of a similar class like this one in Kibera. So walking around, I see this poster, it's Nikon photography class. So I just join in, because when in Kibera, you are not privileged. You know, privilege allows you to make mistakes that they're not fatal. It's not the end of life. That's privilege. When you're not privileged, either it works or you go back to the village. There's no two way about it. So for this project, and why we chose girls is because in informal settlements, most of the people affected are women. That range from young girls to older women. There are all sorts of issues there. And to document some of these stories, you are better placed because you are a lady. There are things you'll understand. And for Nikon is all about representation. We want you to document the stories. Most of the stories from Kibera are all about poverty, diseases, and crime. Well, that's okay, because we cannot deny that there is that problem. But we're also happy. Me, I'm happy being there. I'm happy saying I'm from Kibera. That is what representation comes in. And also, during COVID, COVID presented a very good opportunities for photojournalists and a lot of people across the world. Why? Because news agencies could not just fly in somebody. Before COVID, it was like, there's war in DRC, they'll fly somebody from America, oh, we need photos. During COVID, there are restrictions everywhere, there are lockdowns everywhere. And they hear there's war in DRC. So what do they do? They have to find a local to go and take those photos. And so, having a local, you take photos with dignity. Most of these stories you see from the internet are really not good. They're in a situation whereby, is it the same way you would want to photograph your mom or your dad? So So if you cannot photograph your mom or your dad in the same way, then why do it? Then the other thing is, as David knows and is aware, we're also looking to incorporate the UI instructors into our Nikon school activities. We provide trainings for general public and clients. So why is that? Because, well, I'm not against flying in somebody to come and train you, but they can relate to the markets. If I bring somebody, let's say from Dubai, Dubai is world's top travel destination. The rates there are way too high, and if they come here, they tell you somebody will not be able to pay $100. That doesn't make sense to the people being trained. But if it's a local trainer, he knows there's traffic, he knows this is Nairobi, anything can happen. You can lose your equipment. So with that, we are more of driving diversity and ensuring you tell your stories from how you see it, and let people understand from that perspective. I think that's all. I've exhausted everything.
Thank you so
Anything?
much. Thank you so much, Adrian, for that. And so now we move to someone else who sees the entire thing that we're talking about from a bird's eye view. And that is Dr. Ogutu, who is a lecturer for photojournalism. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And like I've been introduced, my name is Frederick Ogutu. I am a lecturer, but also a practitioner. Myself a photographer, though currently a bit dormant because of other interests. And for the longest time, when I was a young man from college, really did a lot of photography. Then later transition into the lecturing world. I did change the transition, so I added this into the doing. Because there is something about doing. Then there is something about making others do. So when you get to a class for the first time, it's like I'm standing here imagining my first class in a university. We do this every other 3 months. It's always an amazing job that you meet people every other 3 months. And oftentimes, you find them when they're coming from your area of interest. You could always assume that they're coming from a scale of neutral, and then you want to progress them to a place of doing. Before I proceed, it would be of interest to introduce those who are with me, or ahead of me. My chair just walked out, Prof. Dorothy. She's the one who is chair of the Department of Journalism at the university here. She will perhaps come back. Prof. David, I know you will probably introduce her then.
Yes.
Then I have my senior in the house, Prof. Sikolia. He's also a colleague at the department. Prof. Perhaps you just wave. And then I have a colleague somewhere, so Zayden. He's the one with a big camera here. I don't know where he's gone. So those are people we work with, and then I can see a couple of students who we teach here. But I have another colleague from elsewhere. Her name is Esther. She is not a lecturer. She's not in academia directly, but she's in academia. Perhaps you will. And the reason I'm introducing her is, if you have time, I would have asked her question. I would have had her answer. What would happen if in any function where they have arranged high level, middle level, or whatever level, and then in the middle of the meeting, 10 minutes in, and then they realize that the photographer is missing? What really would be that scenario? How would it really look like? The panic that would accompany that moment is unforeseen, and we lack words to describe it. Because at her line of work, she is in corporate communication. Then she does a lot of updating of activities, and I've seen her literally work. Photographers are always back and forth into her desk. And if you don't know, you might never realize the value of a photo until you miss a photographer. So today, in this society where we live in, the whole thing of evidence building, and I had to talk about it, is very, very critical as we do this work. It would interest you to know that at this university, photography and photojournalism are core to the learning process, especially the journalism program. Through your studies, you do photography twice. The first one is the fundamentals. You go through that course to be able to build yourself as a photographer through the fundamentals. Then you take the second one now that just mainstreams you towards photojournalism. So when I see the girls and they're seated in here, perhaps I'm seeing them more as potentials in the future. And you might need to talk here more because in the near future you might have to see you here now streaming and learning about photography and making it into a career. And that doesn't mean that what you're learning now is useless, but then there is a bigger picture about everything. So when you're learning about this, let's allow us to call this a smaller picture, and then allow us to also tell you that there is a bigger picture. And yes, you can be part of this bigger picture when you want to mainstream your career. And it's right at the center of what we do at the school through the communication processes. Now, when I look at the whole of this, what Prof is doing, we look at the whole component and the essence of citizen journalism. By the way, it might interest you that we don't lack photos or information about everything about society. There is abundance of it. Trust me, if you want to Google Kibera, you'll get all sorts of things. So then why would you train a group of people on how to do participatory photography? It's because we realize that in life, it's not about having information, it's not about having photos. But then there is the issue of having proper representation of issues. And this only comes from a component of knowledge. When you have some level of knowledge, then you do things that can substantially inform people about what you're doing. And the whole issue of narratives, stereotypes, and everything. Oftentimes, how many times have we been able to put up wrong information outside to the society by ourselves? Wrong information about Kibera, wrong information about girls, wrong information about everything, just because we are novices. So this program perhaps gives the whole concept of citizen journalism, because participatory journalism is about us being able to mainstream our voices and then to be able to minimize stereotypes. Of course, you cannot eliminate stereotypes, but you minimize them a great deal by being able to communicate in here. So when you're coming in here, the bigger picture is the whole issue of narrative, evidence building, and this can come across and again and again and again. And then now, because we already know that the world is open, and then we cannot do anything about closing down information. So the training part of it comes in to be able to put in proper voices within that crowded society, so that we can be able to pick up information that is accurate, information that can be able to move us forward. So even as we're having this discussion, I think I want to see it from that perspective. And then I also want to put it the bigger picture. That's where, for example, like this institution belongs, and I think Prof was able to just look away of going deep into the people and tapping into the people when they're still young, and being able to now align them moving forward. So thank you so much for this. And again, I want to say that the whole ideology is about being able to look at the narratives, not because we lack them, but being able to mainstream them and just make them to be voices that can count. And remember, most of the times, when we let people speak about our issues, they control what they say and how they say it. But when we start talking about our issues, and this is what the girls are being allowed to do, then ideally we join the society in speaking our issues the same way they ought to be said. Thank you.
A good clap for Dr. Obutu, please. Thank you so much, Dr. for that. Taka spoke about breaking the barriers. Now I'm going to hand over to another organization that is actively involved in breaking the barriers through journalism. The floor is yours. Thank you so much. Introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hi girls.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi.
Are you cold? You're sure? It's a season, it will pass. I went to school in a school called Loreto Limuru for my high school. And it was cold from January to December. And it was so cold, my fingers used to become sausages. But I survived, so you will survive as well, isn't it? Yeah. I can see my senior, Dr. Dorothy Jaroge, is here. I'm so happy to see a familiar face.
Hi.
Yes. She has served at the Association of Media Women board. She's a lecturer here. Are you aware? Yes. I don't know whether she spoke earlier. Sorry, I was giving a speech somewhere else, so unfortunately I may have missed that. I was speaking in the next building, and I was sharing my story as an alumni. I also used to be here in 2004 to 2007. So they called me to speak about my journey and how it was, how I became a media personality. So I want to also share my story, and from it I hope you will learn what AMIC does, not just for women but also girls like yourself. I feel like this one is not want to engage. I have a 9-year-old girl. How old are we here? Just shout your age.
13, 14.
13.
We are all in the teen.
12 to 14.
12 to 14, perfect. Okay, yeah. You remember the day Martha Karua's picture was in the newspaper?
Yes.
The day she was nominated. Did you see that newspaper?
Yes.
I bought it. And I took it home and I said, when my daughter comes from school, I'm going to show her this picture of this powerful woman. I was so excited. I remember screaming because I worked from home. I remember screaming and saying, yay, when Raila announced. And then I have a 4-year-old son as well. So when I started screaming, you know what my son told me? Mommy, you're making noise, keep quiet. Because he's 4, he doesn't understand why mommy is excited, right? But when my girl came, she also wasn't excited, he was excited, but then she started asking me questions. So the number 1 question she asked me, Mommy, why is that woman in the front of the newspaper? Because she never sees women in the front of the newspaper. Who do you see in most newspapers? Men, isn't it? Yeah. So that's one of the things that AMWIC has. AMWIC is Association of Media Women in Kenya. Change the narrative, change the story, right? Because Kenya is made up of men and women. So we can't just tell men's stories, you also have to tell? Yeah, you can't tell stories of boys only, you have to tell stories of girls. And who knows the best way to tell a girl story? A girl, isn't it? Does a boy menstruate? No. Does a boy get period pains? He doesn't, isn't it? Does a boy use pads? He doesn't. Does a boy give birth? That's number 1, right? So, the person who tells the story the best is often the person who has gone through it. We are together? Yes. Number 2, the mere fact that you're a girl or a woman means that your story is important. Aside from periods, aside from teenage pregnancy, aside from marriage, you know all these things that girls go through. Even if you don't go through those things, your story right now where you are at Shofco is very important. And it has to be told. It has to be told to the world, isn't it? Let me give you an example that is linked to this one. If we didn't know that black Americans are not allowed to lead, would Barack Obama have ever been president? It's because people had stories of how black Americans were treated, right? And that's why, in the end, people are like, a black American has never led the US. Why not give him a chance to lead? He had the leadership skills, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and to some maybe he was a bad leader, some maybe a good leader, but he had leadership skills. So another reason why women join the media is so that they amplify. They make these stories louder to other women. When you see a woman like Martha Karua in the newspaper, do you feel like you can also be a deputy president, a president someday? Yes. Yeah, because when you see someone who looks like you, same skin color, has hair like yours, you'll believe you can also do it, isn't it? Yeah? Another thing that AMWIC does is we teach people how to write stories from a human rights perspective. For example, you've heard of girls who are raped, girls who are killed, and then the media will report. And then most of the times, for the longest time, the way the story will be covered, they'll be asking, why was she wearing that dress? Why did she go out at night? You know these things that we're told, as a guy, you're not supposed to sit like this. You know, you're supposed to dress, you know? So when you report a story like that, you are being insensitive. Because when something bad happens to you, like rape, like sexual harassment, murder, you are not the cause of that thing happening to you, are you? So when you talk about the media covering stories from a human rights aspect, you look at it from a human perspective. Be human, right? Look at the person who got injured, the person who was killed. and then tell their story, not the story of the person who killed them. Because most of the time right now, they tell the story of the murderer, they tell the story of the rapist, right? You don't get to hear about this girl. What was she like when she was growing up? Did she go to Shofco? Did she go to, I went to my primary in Nakuru. Did she go to my primary? Did she go to Limuru where it was cold and her fingers were like sausage? You know, you want to put a human face to that person and not just, you know, cover the news and say, one girl was killed, 2 girls were raped, you know? Put a face, put a human, you know, aspect to the type of stories you tell. Another reason why women make a difference in the media and why we want a lot of girls to join the media is because women tell stories differently. The way you tell me about, what did you do yesterday?
Yesterday,
Yes,
I went for Eid.
you went for Eid. What happened during Eid?
We ate, we had fun.
Oh, wow. What did you eat?
Pilau.
Pilau. How many love pilau? Let me pick someone else. Yeah, you was looking down, you, that one, yes. What did you do yesterday? Yes, you, the one who's looking behind. And that's another point I'm going to explain. Yes?
Yes.
What did you do? Yes, what did you do yesterday? You played? With who? With me. Who did you play with?
My friend.
Your friends? Which game did you play? Football. Oh my God! Wow! I love that. I love that very much. When we were growing up, football was for boys. Is football for boys? No. It's for everyone, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's another reason why girls should be in the media. To show you that they can do things that are for boys. There's nothing like it's for boys, it's for girls. We are together? And then, you noticed how when I asked her to speak, she looked behind. Did you see?
Yes.
Did you see? Even me, I used to be like that. First of all, I never used to speak the way I'm speaking right now. I'd be like this. You couldn't even hear what I'm saying. Madam, we can't hear you. And I would never be called to speak anywhere because you don't call people to speak when they're not good public speakers. Sindio? They won't make a change. You won't even hear or understand what they're saying. So Amwik trains women to speak up. I used to be exactly like her, very shy. And then class 8, I was the tallest. So if we were arranged like this, and Rachel was in the back, if you turned around like this, you'd see me. I was over here, taller than everyone. And you know, I hated it. I hated it because I wanted to be like everyone else. I didn't want people to keep looking at me all the time. I wanted to be like all my friends, the same, you know. So you know how I used to walk like this, so that I'm the same height, like this. That's another reason why women are in the media, right? To show you that you are okay. You're beautiful the way you are, right? Whether you're tall, short, fat, slim, does it matter? It doesn't, right? It's what you're able to do, either for yourself or other people. The positive impact that you're able to make, whether you're a leader or not a leader, it is what you're able to do that matters, not the shape of, no. Right? You agree with me? Yes. So I was taught, and now when you call, even when you don't call me, I will raise my hand and say I have something to say. Yeah? In a meeting like this, when they say, does anyone have a question for the speaker? I'll be the first one. I used to never ask questions. And then I used to sit in the back there, where that lady is sitting, so that the teacher was to notice me and ask me questions. That's why you saw I moved from where? From here to here. Yeah? Because once I've talked to her, do you think I've changed my mind about her? The way she speaks, and next time, when she's called upon, do you think she'll do this? See, maybe I've changed her mind and she'll be like, yes, me, I want to say my story, what I did yesterday. See, I've encouraged her, right? Yeah. So when you have women in the media, they appreciate every single person, talent, demeanor, they appreciate you the way you are. And that's why we need to have many more women, because they make it a nice place to be. You understand? They make it feel like a valuable place, a place that, whether you're a girl or a boy, it doesn't matter. you can do whatever it is everyone is needed to do, and you can make a difference, right? You can make a change. So public speaking, I've talked about public speaking. And then there's a lady who used to work at Facebook called Sheryl Sandberg. She wrote a book called Lean In. So when I was talking about when you're called to speak and you're feeling shy, Sheryl talks about that. And she says, always be the first to lift your hand. Yeah? Always find something to say, like when I finish now, and then maybe the speaker says, does anyone want to maybe talk to Rachel outside, or do you want to ask her a question? Be the
Good.
first one.
It's good that you brought that up. Your session is coming. Your Q&A session is coming. Think that in writing.
Oh,
and I'm telling
excellent.
You'll talk and talk and talk.
Oh, I can talk until tomorrow. If you didn't stop me, thank you.
I wish we didn't have to stop you. We have to get back to school eventually.
Yeah, no
But
problem.
it was really-
Yeah, I hope they fix that thing or two.
Everybody, all the speakers have been fantastic. We have one more person that we'd like you to meet before we go to, I see everybody's busy writing questions. That's great. You guys have curious minds. They all have their questions. They're preparing their answers for you. But first I want you to meet the person who made this event possible, our host. She's the department chair of the journal. You've changed the name of the department from journalism.
Media and communications.
Media and Communications now. Used to be called Journalism and Corporate Communications. And so Dr. Dorothy Injirobe is the department chair, and she'd like to greet you guys. So.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Red is my favorite color, so when I saw a lot of red here, I was so excited because it means that you have passion for photography and for whatever else. You see, this project has just helped you to see the possibilities out there, that you can do anything. You set your mind to, and you can be good at it, because what I'm seeing is pretty amazing. And I actually thought you were older. You're only 12 to 14. Oh my goodness. What you're doing is fantastic. Pat yourself on the back, and don't let this be the end and say, okay, so the project is over. I hope something has been born in you, that this is where I want to go with my life, this is what I want to do, and that you're not going to let the circumstances that you're under limit your imagination. You can be more, you can do more, and I'm really looking forward to those of you who are interested in higher education joining us here, so that we can build your talent more and you can explore what you can do more. I don't want to take too much time because you've listened to so many adults and you're wondering, okay, when will the lectures end? But happy to see Rachel. We worked together for a long time, and she's a really great resource for all of you and an inspiration. And I would like to recognize the presence of my colleague here. This is Dr. Geoffrey Serede. If you can just say hi. We teach in the communications department.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Good to see you. Welcome to USIU Media and Communications Department.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and wish you all the best. And karibuni tena USIU.
Thank you so much, Dr. Just said we are welcome again. We'll be coming again. Okay. That time you'll spare a bigger space than this. We'll be more.
Yes.
Thank you so much to the speakers. A hand of applause for the speakers. Young minds are curious minds, and now it's time for the speakers to respond to your questions. I've seen so many questions for Taka. I don't know whether we should start with her or we start with the one with the least questions. What do you think? Democracy. We start with the most questions or the least? Becky, take over.
I don't know what it means to have the least number. But I guess because we interacted the other day, so the questions are limited. I only have one question and I'll read it. Have you had any challenges with Shofco or any complaints? Let me start with the smaller one. Yeah? The first challenge I had when this program started, we have around 360 girls in KSG. Some came to my office. Why have you only picked 17? Every other person wanted to join them, program. That was a challenge, right? Then I'm a man of two wives. Kibera School for Girls, Madare School for Boys. Those are my wives. So Madare School for Girls, they had some wind of this program. So the question was, why are we not doing it? You will come to answer that. To Madare. So those are challenges that I faced. And I know we can always overcome. The next challenge that I'm thinking about right now, after David is done with the program, the curriculum that he prepared, what next for you girls? I know you're going to ask me that. Is that a challenge? So I face challenges. There are bigger scope of challenges. For example, you girls know from grade 6 we are going to junior secondary school. Is that true? Yes. But in Shofco, have you seen a junior secondary school building anywhere? No. That's a challenge. So every day we face these challenges. When we are doing admission for girls to come to our school, we can only take 40 girls, right? But do you know we get over 200 applicants who wants to join our school? How do we handle them? Those are challenges. So I do face challenges every other day. I do face complaints, and it is part of life. It makes my job very interesting. How do I handle them? Topic for another day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate, for that answer. I'm sure the girls are not satisfied that challenges are all over. So we let Taka respond to a number of questions that she's holding on her hand.
Thank you. You guys are curious indeed. I got lots of questions, and I think I'm happy that she stopped me. So one of the questions is, why do you emphasize on use of photography, and how has ActionAid benefited? So ActionAid has benefited through evidence building, because we are using photography as one of the tools to build a mass of evidence for agency, to say when there is food crisis, we need evidence. So we have used that even when we want to advocate government for particular changes, even changes for women's rights issues, we use photography. And then we also use photography for fundraising purposes. For example, some of the funds that we have received has been through the stories and photography that we have used to support vulnerable communities. As I said, we work with communities living in poverty. So some of the photographs that we have taken, we have actually fundraised to support communities that are living in poverty. So photography is very important to us. Okay.
So as you know, Rachel is a busy person. She's being called to another session. So because you've had a bit of her, can we also lend a bit of her to the other team? So for that reason, she has a question. She must respond before she leaves.
I have to say thank you for accepting to be interrupted. Yeah. So my question is, who inspired you to become who you are now? And I think that's a very excellent question. Who asked this question? Very good. Very good. We all need inspiration, right? Inspiration is how you change from the person you are to the person you want to be. So the person who made me want to be where I am now, because I used to be a shy girl, but now I'm not, her name is Mildred Gessa. She's not famous. Maybe you would have thought I would have said Michelle Obama or someone, or Martha Karua.
Yeah.
No, but it's someone who, when I was very low at some point in my life, I went through a training program called Women in News, and we were taken to South Africa for a few months, and she was one of the trainers. And she used to dress the way, she actually still dresses. She dresses the way I'm dressing, and then her hair, she wears her hair, it's big, like this. She has an afro, so she's very proud of her African hair. And then when she talks, she doesn't need a microphone. When she's talking, you can hear her from there. She talks with authority. And then when she's talking, she does, can you hear me? You know? She talks, yeah, very powerful. She speaks very powerfully. So the reason why she motivated me, she kept on asking the group of us who are there, what are you doing with your life? you are in the media. At the time I was at Citizen TV. So she did what I did. You remember when I walked over there? She walked and said, Rachel, what are you doing at Citizen TV? Then I told her, I'm working. Then she's like, no, that's not what I'm asking. I told her, I'm an editor. I come to work at 8, I leave at 5. She's like, that's not the answer I'm looking for. What contribution are you making? If you leave Citizen today, will they remember you? That's what she asked me. And I said no, and I was very embarrassed. Because I was like, I want people not to remember me for my makeup or the way I talk, or I want them to remember me for making a difference in their lives. And that question that she asked me, I didn't have an answer for it that time, but it made me start thinking, what difference do I want to make? And she said, you don't need to have a title to make a difference. Because at that time, I was only a member at AMIC. I wasn't on the board. I was just a member. And I never used to speak much. I used to sit down and listen the way you were listening. But when she asked me that question, it lit a spark in my brain. And I started asking, what can I do? So when we came back to Kenya, is now when I started speaking up about things like gender coverage, gender-sensitive coverage. I started speaking about sexual harassment in the media houses. I started speaking about equality. Like most of the time, if you come to the newsroom, you'll find it's men who are sent to cover, let's say, politics, and then women will be sent to cover health. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there's segregation. Yeah. Boys do this, girls do this. So I started talking about it and making noise. Why? Asking, why? Why are you sending him? Why don't you send me? I started asking questions. And because I started asking questions, in that small office where we were, people started talking about Rachel. Right? Rachel is talking about this at Citizen. Why can't she come and talk about this somewhere else? Yeah? So all these things started happening after Mildred asked me that question. Yeah? And then recently she's a cancer, they say cancer warriors. She got cancer and she's fighting, she's gone through chemo. Basically what I'm trying to say is she's a fighter. She's a fighter in every aspect. She's a fighter for women. She's a fighter in terms of her health. She's fighting cancer and she's fought it. She's winning the battle. So I wanted to be like her. And I think I am just an inch. I'm almost there. Not yet, but almost there. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you for having me. I'm going to give another speech over there. Yeah?
Thank you so much.
I hope to see you again soon.
Yes, we'll definitely invite you again.
Yes.
And I hope someone has benefited from her speech. Okay. And all you've been inspired. Okay? So, back to you, Taka. Sorry for interrupting you. Run the whole race now.
Yes. Thank you very much. So the next question is, what challenges do you face as a photojournalist when you're helping women and girls? So, what challenges? The challenges are many. My colleague was just saying every day we live, but when we are working with women and girls, my biggest challenge is other people telling women's stories. You know. So usually when we work, as I said, we work with communities. I would like communities to tell their own story, and I would like a woman to tell their own story. Right. So if someone else talks about, for example, lack of electricity in my country where I come from, if there is no water or if there is no electricity, it affects the boy or the girl differently. A girl needs more water than a boy. And as I was going around Kenya, as I was documenting how drought has affected women, I spoke to one woman who said she and a family of 9 are living on 3 liters of water a day. A family of 9. And they have to live on that 3 liters of water. So they are using that water for drinking and cooking only. So it means no bathing. And what does that mean for a woman not bathing for a week? You know, if she's in her menses. So water affects. So I want women to tell their own stories. So sometimes you get people who want to tell the story of the woman. So I want the woman to speak the pictures of women. And then the other issues that I face, stereotypes. And the need to break these stereotypes. You know, the woman is it the nurse? The woman is the one that is cooking. If you see in the media, the adverts, the one who is driving the car is the man, and the woman is, you're advertising a car, and the woman is standing there, half naked. And what are you saying? So the woman is a subject, she's used as a subject to sell the car. So I want the woman to be in the car. So the issue of stereotypes is one of those things. And so as you go in communities, as you finish, you need to break those stereotypes and tell the real story about women, right? And then women in unpaid care work, when you go in communities, you have mobilized communities to collect stories. You see the men that are coming. Women have been left behind, they are doing the chores, because they've, so there's a lot of unpaid care work, to look for water, so sometimes you can't find the women who you want to tell, who you want to get the stories from. So those are some of the challenges. And then the quality of the pictures. Sometimes we work with communities, we ask them to provide the pictures. Some of the stories, the pictures are not really good quality. This is because of maybe they don't have the gadgets, but sometimes we provide them with like smartphones to take, but you realize that some of the pictures are not like taken with dignity. You know, I'm sure you've, under the training that you've been told what is the dignified angle of taking a picture. If I'm taking a picture of you, like I'm standing here, like I take a picture of you right there, like you're seated there, I'm really looking down upon you. If I want to give you power, I bend down and I give you power. So in ActionAid, we believe in giving people power, even in photography. You give a person power by the angle that you're. So you really need to know all that. And then the next question, what is the big story behind association projects? I think the question they wanted to say, what is the big story with your organization? I'm just assuming, did I interpret it correctly?
No, you're right.
I'm right. So what is the big story? So our big story is we want a world without poverty and injustice, in which every person enjoys a life of dignity, a life that is just. And we are very particular about dignity. And I told you that there is also dignity in photography. So how do you live a life of dignity? That is our big story, even as we are telling stories. And even as we are supporting communities, we want to promote dignity, to have them a dignified life. You know, a life without water, 3 liters of water a day is not a dignified life. So that's why we are using even photography to advocate the government of Kenya to ensure that those communities get boreholes, get safe and drinking water. And then the next question, what encouraged or inspired you to do this? I think what really inspired me is to bring out the voice of the voiceless. I'm not going to go a long story about my background, but I grew up a very disadvantaged child. In my age, like in your age, around 11 or 10, I was living in a rural area, and I was picked up by someone who said this child has potential. And I used to walk without shoes, but I am here in Kenya actually sharing my experiences with you. So what really inspired me is bringing out a different narrative, the voice of the voiceless, and the voice of the woman, and the voice of that girl who no one is hearing about. I am very passionate about women's issues. I can go on and on and on. So I am happy that my voice is being heard. I try by all means, through photography and other ways, to bring out my voice. And then to support women economically, how do you give them money to support themselves? As ActionAid, we work with community-based organizations, women's groups that we actually provide capacity. We believe in localization. So we believe that the communities that have problems have solutions to their issues. So we work with women's groups, movements, to actually support communities in the various programs. So economically, we don't give direct the money to the women, but we provide the capacity to the women's groups, who in turn provide cascade the capacity building. So the capacity building can be software, but it can also be in monetary terms to start the income generating project, but we do it through the community-based organizations, which we empower to say, you know your solutions better, so they will know the right solutions to the communities, and they look at their context and they come up with projects and they implement. And then how are you going to help or come in to help as a photographer further photography skills as an individual. Okay, as an individual. So my presence right here, actually, I think it is an inspiration enough for you to say that a girl can do it, right? That girl who used to walk barefoot with no shoes at all can do it, right? So a girl can do it. So that's inspiration enough. I will also share my notes with David on how to tell a story in a dignified way, and whose voice, and what is a dignified angle, and how do you tell a story of women, and then various notes on photography, but basically looking at how do you promote women's and girls' rights, how do you tell the stories, because sometimes we really want to bring out the challenges that communities are facing, but sometimes you realize, some of my colleague was talking about dignity, some of the communication or some of the pictures that are shown do not have dignity. So I can share those notes with David.
Thank you. I like that.
As per my experiences.
I would love that,
yeah. And then how would you support Action Aid? I think this question wants to say how would Action Aid support us? Because it's saying how would you support Action Aid? I think, is that the question?
The question is how will Action Aid support Shofco, these girls?
Yes, yes. So I got it right.
Yes.
So I think in terms of the support, I've already indicated that I'll share my notes with David on some of our experiences on how to take dignified angles and how to take good pictures in communities, how you can support. Yeah, I've got those notes that I actually use to train the citizen journalists, because to me, you are the future citizen journalist. Even if when you are not employed, you are still representing the community, you can still tell a story about your community and bring about change. So I will share my notes. And then if you are asked to stop your job, what would you do since you are so passionate about it?
Whose questions
Wow.
are these? Whose questions are these?
Whose question was that? Brilliant. I can tell you, you know what, you guys are so
These are
brilliant.
natural
These
born
questions-
journalists.
Yes, it's a natural born journalist, yes. I am a natural journalist, right? Because I was also trained, I'm a trained journalist, right? So if I stop my official job, I think in my private life, I also do my own private citizen journalism for the purpose of my nation, so that there are changes in communities. So I will not, once a journalist, always a journalist. So I may not, what I'm doing here, but I think the life of bringing out my story, the story of women, will still be engaged. And then since you have been in different countries, which is the most common problem that they face? So I'm not sure about in terms of the most common in terms of photography or general. In terms of, if it's general, I think I've already alluded to this question about the challenges in whose voice you are telling. But if it's the general problem that the world is facing, I'm sure you are aware of the climate change. Whether you are in Europe or you are in Africa, the climate change issue is affecting everyone, even back home where I come from. So this is an issue that is affecting. So what are we saying as the global south? What are we saying? We are pushing the global north to support the global south for the contribution of the global warming. And so these are, so as a citizen journalist, you need to look at issues like around climate financing. What is the global north doing to support the global south? Even the global south also needs to look at ways to preserve the environment. So we are looking at alternatives of how the world can still survive even in a climate that is clean. So global warming issues, climate justice issues, these are issues that are, and they affect the woman the most. The woman the most. So you need to bring out how is the woman affected by climate change the most, water issues, traveling long distances, sexual, gender-based violence, all these issues that are affecting women. And violation of women and girls' rights are actually on the rise because of the challenges brought about by the global warming. I think I have done justice to
Yes.
my questions. Thank you for the brilliant questions.
Yeah, global warming affecting all of us, whether you're in the whether you're in the developed countries or you're in the underdeveloped countries. How do we tackle that? Kevin?
Yeah, so thanks for everything. So the first question I got, how do you feel when the student you taught has become a leader of photojournalism or has her own company to teach the coming students? So this is a very brilliant question. How would I feel when the student I have taught became a leader of photojournalism or has had her own company? So I will feel very happy and so fulfilled if any of you in this room would pursue photojournalism more and journalism, probably here in USIU, God willing. And I think education is a very powerful tool. I never got the privilege to have this project while I was studying photography. And this is something that you should not take for granted. And so it is nice having knowledge, but it's more nice sharing the knowledge with others so that you can inspire other people to inspire others. So what we're doing here is creating a network of female photojournalists who would inspire others to speak about misrepresentation in various fields, as Rachel and Taka has spoke about it. So women photojournalism, telling women's stories in the community. So I would feel very privileged if any of you will become a professor like Dave or a professor like Ogutu over here. Yeah. And I'm not a professional professor myself, but I'm getting there.
You are. Getting there fast.
So, yeah, the second question is, what is street photography like to you? So I would like to answer this with a bit of background myself. So I live in Dandora. Dandora is just slum like Kibera. So Dandora has the largest, we'll say, landfill. If any of you understand what that means, a dump site, the largest dump site in East Africa. So that place, I would categorize it as maybe the dirtiest slum in Nairobi we have. So that is why, that's what inspired me to focus my work on environmental conservation and shooting these stories that tell stories about the purpose of conserving our environment, the purpose of recycling, the purpose of planting more trees. So that's basically what I base my work on. So street photography to me is showing life in its natural best form. So shooting those pictures of how people are disposing the waste anyhowly without any consideration of the near future. Yeah, so that's what street photography is to me. Thank you.
Hi once again. So I got two questions. One is, how are you able to convince the people who you take photographs to using your photos? Is that question correct? Yeah, you can stand up and ask.
Actually, that photo was meant for, that question was meant for Taka. How does she convince the people who she takes her photographs to by using her photos?
Okay. Since Edwin is also a photographer, he also takes photos of different people in the streets. He will give his side of he will give his answer, and then he will also give Taka also a chance to respond to the same question. from an NGO perspective and from the street photography, okay? Got it?
Yes.
Okay.
So your question is, how do I convince people to photograph?
Yeah.
Right, so in documentary photography and photojournalism, one of the biggest challenges is you have to know the name, you have to interact with your subject. So in one of the classes I attended, photojournalism class, the assignment was go out there, photograph the people, know what's their name, their age, and where they live. We have had an incident of a photographer who went to Afghanistan in, I think, 2004, and he photographed a young girl, and the photo went viral. 20 years later, it's when he can go back and trace the little girl he photographed. And all those years he was being asked, what is the name, or where did you, it was like, it was just a portrait. It was just a random portrait. And trust me, if you are a journalist or documentary photographer, you'll get a lot of no's. I've woken up to go and photograph outside. I photographed randomly. And we'll ask somebody, can I photograph you? And they tell you it's a no, it's a no. If you insist, it becomes war. They'll even beat you. So, and there are days I go out, a whole day, and I'll photograph only 2 people. The others are no's. You have to, the more you do that, the more you get the confidence, and it gets easier with time. So the second question is, what made you want to take photos of Kibra? So, okay, just to give an example of David. So the first time I met David, he was a bit skeptical of bringing his camera and photographing around. And the reason I want to photograph Kibra is there's always that fear that you'll be robbed. And I told David, Kibra is one of the safest places as far as theft is concerned. It's even safer than Nairobi CBD. And it was like, wow.
Let me add something. That's part of it.
Yep.
But the other reason I asked that is because I want to make sure that I don't bother people. That I don't just take advantage, they don't feel like I'm taking advantage of them. They don't know the reason I'm taking photographs. So you have to be sensitive to that sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just get up in somebody's face and take photographs. In some cultures it's more acceptable, some places people don't like it. I noticed that in Kibera people tend not to like it unless they know the reason why you're doing it. So I missed a lot of opportunities for photographs in Kibera since I've been here, because I just decided to keep my camera down or in my pocket, just to avoid offending somebody. So there's also that, you know.
That which is a very good aspect. Also, is in photojournalism you have to be cautious of your subjects. You just don't pop up because you're photojournalist take photos. You have to ask for permission, because one thing with these photos is, if an editor wants to publish the photos, they'll ask you, do you know the subject? Is there consent? So if there's no consent, then they'll tell you, no, just, because they don't want issues later of you photograph a person and they never give you the consent to publish the photo, and becomes a whole other sort of issues to deal with. I think that's all.
Thank you so much, Adrian. So as a hand of applause for... So we'll give Taka a minute to draft our answer, and then we move to Dr. Ogutu. Dr. Ogutu, how is it?
Okay, thank you. The first question I have here is, when did you first interact with a professional camera? The answer that I'm going to give you first is not the answer that I really want to give you, but I have to start from there. I first interacted with a professional camera in my second year of training. Okay, that might not mean anything to you, so I'll go to the real answer. When I said that, when I was at your age, mobile phones were not there. And if there was one, it was satellite, and camera was not part of it, and it was out of reach of even the richest men in town. So you might think that having a phone with a camera was a thing of the common. So by the time I was getting to my second year of training, I had not taken a single picture. A single one, not with a phone, not with a nothing. So that was the first time when I got to interact with it. And for information, it's not like I was using it. I was seeing it when somebody was using it to train me. Because it was this precious thing. It was not this digital thing that you can operate within your hand. It was a sophisticated equipment that were being operated by two specialized men. And there was something, after taking your pictures, you had to go into the darkroom process. It's a whole hell of a process. So that was the first time. But then, up to that point, I'd always been seeing pictures. So to me, a picture was something that was a miraculous product that had to come from some God knows somewhere. So that can really tell you the difference between you and me and perhaps him, how we became. The second question is almost tied to this, and it's asking, why would you encourage a young girl from Kibra to pursue photography to an advanced level? I will answer this with some caution, but I want to be a bit certain. The advanced level part of it is very critical. Remember that photography is something very, very huge. By the way, it's something huger than you can imagine. Most photographers actually realize that what they took is bigger than them, always. When you become a good photographer, you realize that after you take that picture, it's bigger than you. It always outgrows you. You look at all the pictures that can be referred to, the anger in Namibia, and most of the things. And Taka here will tell you that some of the things are the pictures that they go and sit down with the people that they fundraise with. The picture who took the person who took the picture is always never there, but the effect therein of that picture outgrows even an organization. Action aid becomes smaller just because of one photo. But then for you to be able to take a picture that can outgrow action aid, you must have a higher order of thinking. Photography is not about operating the camera. No. Photography is bigger. It's art and science. There is psychology. There is sociology. There is so many things. There is higher order thinking, communication. So for you to get to that level, you can't get to that level if you don't get to advance your skill. So may it be known to you that what you're learning right now is very, very important. But if you have to remain at the entry level, then remain average, then you don't make impact in society, then stick where you are. But if you really, really want to entrench yourself within the bigger society and be able to make a difference, so that Taka could carry your picture and go with it to London and project it to a group and subject people to give billions of shillings to support a cause, then you have to also advance your skills to a higher level. That only happens when you advance your skills and join an institution like this and enroll in some formal program that is going to give you a higher order thinking through other programs to package you into something more acceptable. Again, remember that organizations at some level cannot engage you just because you're talented. No, they want to check who are you. Can you engage with us at this level? Have you trained? What is your background? Actually, most of this, and Taka will tell you that she will ask you for your CV to just know, can you be able to relate with issues at this level? So how will that happen? That can't happen if you didn't advance yourself. So please don't settle for less. This is the beginning, so you must always realize that there is a higher order of every issue. And photography is one of it. And I can again tell you that photography is not as simple as somebody can be able to put it, and it's not about operating a camera. That's very, very important. Then, what is the impact that, I'll answer that last. Let me go to Kamsan here. How did you start learning about photojournalism? For my very first formative years, I developed myself as a photographer, and that might shock you that I want to delink photography from photojournalism. I love doing it. So, because being a photographer, just concerning yourself with taking pictures that are technically smart and acceptable. And that happens a lot. And we have pictures in their trillions that meet technical specifications, but they're not journalistic photos. In fact, right now, if I give you 100 photos, perhaps maybe 10, 15 might qualify as photos, journalistic photos. The rest are just photos, meaning therefore that they don't have an impact factor. They cannot move somebody into a something. They just pictures are like, wow, that's beautiful. So for my formative years, I knew how to take pictures. We still used films. But I was just taking pictures for picture's sake, a subject well fits. But then there is the factor of what really makes a picture journalistic. Now that really I moved into later, past college actually. and got to know really, just taking a picture of somebody who is two dignitaries, the president as his deputy when they're just seated, is different from when you catch them when they're deep into a conversation, so that you can capture the action and the emotions. Now that now is journalistic. Now that I give into it, unfortunate for you, might pick it early, which will work better for you than some of us who had to really go through the tunnels to be able to get in there. So I learned it eventually and systematically. And today when I teach, this is one of the things that I infuse into the learning early enough to know that I don't want pictures of people posing.
Yeah.
I want people in their natural activity, so that you can be able to represent the life and the emotions around the whole issue. That is the difference between photography and photojournalism, being able to represent energy and action. How do you use photography to help the community? This can be a long, long story. I'll give you the small of it, which will be a disadvantage, but then because of time we go for that. I was once in Malindi, and we were doing this project about a village. This village is marooned by a river. It's a village called Burangi. You'll be shocked that in the former years, when the first president was here, the government, when these guys lacked food, the government could only go and drop food using a chopper. There was no access. It's river, what? Remember the river. And what used to happen is that now the river was heavily infested with crocodiles. So, and there were no bridges. And so these guys were inside there, and they perfected the art of living in there. And for years, these guys, they would suffer, eat their thing, but when hunger comes, government would drop food. So this time, somebody was doing a project to be able to open them up to society, because these guys would die inside. And if you're brave enough, I think some brave men and women have perfected the art of outmaneuvering crocodiles into the mainland and the camp. So we went there, and there is this single photo, just a single photo, that we got of a group of men swimming. Can I say they were acting like an ambulance? Because they had some makeshift bed, and there were 4 men, and they were swimming across the river with their patient to take the patient to the mainland so that they can be taken to hospital. This picture, what it did is massive. That's why I told you a picture can outgrow anyone who has taken it. And that's how now you help the community. But again, I want to send a warning. Let us not take a picture from a victim perspective. This is one of the biggest risks that we have. And when I was talking about girls representing girls' stories, I want to throw caution here. Think of yourself as a bigger human than that. For crying out loud, in my class, and some of them are here, and Prof will confirm, in a group of 40, 35 are always ladies. Men are even less. So if you see yourself at a bigger picture as a smarter person, and again I'm going to repeat this, as I'm a man, I find ladies smarter and more creative in this life today. So see yourself from that bigger picture, and take pictures that can be able to make a difference within the society. The last question I'm going to answer is, what is the impact that you are being a professor of photography has brought to you? Basically what happens is, you see, you cannot represent to people the world that you can't perceive. There is always a world. So you perceive a world first, then you engage with that world, then you output that world. There is a way, if you don't see Kibra, so that it makes you think differently as you get to be a professional. Again, at this level,